You guys mind explaining kind of who you are and how long you've been
Sure.
with FP and stuff?
Sure. So I'm Mike Mucciolo. I've been doing FP since we were saying 2017, 2018. I own the studio, Functional Patterns Santa Monica in Santa Monica, Los Angeles, California. But yeah, I actually had a severe injury, fairly severe. I mean, I was out for a good 3 months rolling out of bed, back injury from deadlifting. And that's actually what ended up leading me to functional patterns, like looking them up on YouTube and things like that. And then after about 6 months or so, I went to Human Foundations, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, my name's rodney.acero. I'm coming from San Diego. I have the facility down there, FP San Diego. And then I started doing functional patterns around the same time. 2017, I had constant back pain, constant knee pain, constant shoulder, neck pain from lifting. I started weightlifting when I was in high school. Squat, deadlifts, benching, all that. I was doing martial arts. I was running, playing soccer, did climbing, triathlons, all kinds of stuff. And by probably when I was 22, 23, I started feeling all the pains, and then I quit working out. And then 2 or 3 years after that, that's when I found functional patterns. And I've been doing it since, and everything's going away. I'm moving better than before. I had lost a bunch of muscle too from not being able to work out. I'm starting to gain that back. Yeah, I move a lot better than what I used to. I'm sprinting a lot better. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Definitely
a lot of yoga,
long road.
a lot of stretching.
I used to do yoga. Yep.
Yeah.
Mobility stuff, all that.
Do you guys do you utilize like any specific bodybuilding techniques? Because you were mentioning you lost some muscle, so do you adhere to like some just general hypertrophy and basic exercises, or are you guys still doing exercises that look quite differently?
Yeah, it's still related to. We're still relating the exercises towards gait and towards like addressing the like movement capacity in terms of like sprinting, throwing, posture, like standing and stuff like that, and then yeah, like our asymmetry. So it's all about correcting the movement and correcting the structure, and then while you're doing that, you end up building muscle. And yeah, you're essentially working everything at the same time.
Want me to get into another spot, or?
Maybe hit your lats, but with maybe like a PVC pipe.
Yeah,
or
Yeah,
something like
PVC would be good.
yeah.
Even one of these guys probably work pretty good.
I think this will be good. Yeah, this is perfect.
That's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I have followed though, like the rep ranges can still apply sometimes. You know, that did give me a basic framework sometimes when it's like, all right, if this person needs to practice the movement, you know, I don't necessarily count reps. Usually we're looking for form, but as people get more advanced, I might say like, you know, a 3x10 for this particular exercise might actually be good if we're doing some like mace bell swings and
Some
stuff
of the
like
general
that.
parameters of like 30 to 60 seconds or
Yeah,
something.
and even with the corrective work, because it's a high neurological load, it's like, okay, that I did kind of think about that from the old bodybuilding, powerlifting paradigm. It's like, okay, if there's a super high neurological load, then, you know, I might do between 3 and 5 reps instead. Like for this corrective work, this person's either going to burn out in 1 or 2 reps or 3 to 5. If they don't burn out, am I challenging them enough? Is there another position that's better? So it does give me clues in that regard.
I know a lot of the exercises you guys do, sometimes they just take a long time depending on how you're cueing them.
Yes.
I'm sure it's highly dependent on the person, but sometimes like one rep can sometimes last a little while. There might be might be like a isometric in there, or, you know, some, depending on the particular way that you're moving, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I wouldn't say isometric, but yeah, there's more. I guess yeah, it's slower for sure, but the idea is to build it up to where you're moving and then building the range of from where you're getting from, like, I guess, input to output.
Yeah.
Like moving.
I almost call it globometric because it's like
I see.
everything is so
That's a
global,
great
but
way
it
to
feels
word it.
like an isometric tension. So, but that's the IMAPs, and I think Nowdy actually may have just been talking about this the other night, which was IMAP standing for Integrated Muscle Action Potentiation, which is a fancy way of saying that we want all the muscles that we want to fire at the same time in the correct sequence, basically. I guess at the same time, correct sequence might be a little bit, but basically within those same parameters, there is a sequencing, but it's all happening at once.
Right.
Or very close to it once, I'll say.
What's kind of the mission statement, if you could share that, of functional patterns? What's like the main, I don't know, thesis or concept?
To make essentially like fitness accessible to more people without the consequences that tend to come with it. So I think in general, the majority of people are somewhat excluded from fitness because they can't partake in like the for the most part, what people think of simple exercises like squats, benches, push-ups, things like that.
Pain.
They're actually very advanced for a lot of people.
Yeah, people get disqualified.
So I think a part of it is trying to have fitness reach more people, and then have them get the benefits that they can get from being able to work out without the consequences.
We ideally want it to be accessible to everyone. And I think that the idea is to create resilience in humans, but in all spectrums, so from people who have a genetic average that's even below Rodney's and I's, like we consider ourselves to honestly be kind of on the lower end, but what it's done for us, we want that to be even for people there, and then also to high level athletes.
Yeah, I understand. Like fitness has landed on a lot of people like myself.
Right.
Hey, you should go do a powerlifting meet, because I was a big, strong kid.
Right.
And I was already lifting at that point, but genetically probably predisposed to be at least decent at it to start.
Yeah.
Which was good enough to make me feel good enough about it to continue to do it and pursue it. Whereas some of my friends might have just been smaller framed, and it's like,
exactly,
you're smaller framed, you're not going to be great for. You may not be great for powerlifting. You might have to find a different sport. It might be soccer. It might be, you mentioned triathlon, or.
Yeah, but then even we're at a capacity where we're low, but there's people that are even lower than that, where
100%.
they can even walk, or they can even do anything athletic. So the idea is to hit all those.
It's you want to have the idea is to give a framework to fitness, like an accessible framework that isn't, because people talk about like the 7 movement patterns, but then you want to go, I don't know how many steps below, but below that foundationally, those patterns are derivatives of gait. So it's like, okay, what is our biological blueprint? Standing, walking, running, and throwing. And then when you have that blueprint, then you get the accessibility. And without that blueprint, then you end up skipping steps. And that's when people who don't have a genetic advantage end up with pain.
Yeah, so essentially, I think that essentially the people that have the genetic advantage already have that foundation. Like that foundation is kind of already there, but they don't realize it. So for the other people, they have to build it first.
And you can pretty much get, I realize there's some people excluded from this, but you can get almost everyone to walk.
Sure.
And then if they can walk, then hopefully they can throw and run and do some of these other things at some other point.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I would say if they could walk, then they can do something like the row, or something like a press, or some of the exercises that we show.
Right.
And then from there, slowly build them to where it's more dynamic, more just more demanding, to eventually build to like running, sprinting, throwing, things like that. Yeah.
But a big part of functional patterns is that you guys are trying to integrate movements that are advancing gait, and maybe discouraging, maybe not utilizing things that you think may work against natural gait patterns.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
100%. But you'd be surprised what you can do if you follow if you consolidate the initial beginnings of it. If you consolidate the foundation within that walking, running, and throwing, there's stuff that we see online and we're like, we could actually make that work. You know what I'm saying? Like there are things that
like
you
you
can
guys
do.
were messing around with the squats
Exactly.
yesterday and stuff.
Yeah. You know, like I was doing the bag lift, and you know, that's not something that I would normally practice. Like I don't have anything above 200 pounds in my gym, but you know, I'll just walk over there and pick it up after I had it was years ago now, but still it was a debilitating back injury. I mean, I was rolling out of bed out for
Shit.
3 months at least. Yeah. So, you know, the fact that I didn't feel lower back pump and felt very safe doing that, it's like that lifting is still a part of our paradigm for sure.
Yeah, lifting is it comes from we're able to lift the way we do because we walk on 2 feet.
Right.
You guys mind explaining what some of this stuff does, the myofascial release?
Yeah, I think actually Nadi spoke about it yesterday. So essentially, what some of the spots that you'll see on like the 10-week course of the MFR, they're essentially areas that seem to get the most like clogged up in the body. So if you're thinking about like a river or a roadway, there's going to be areas where there's clogging. So then it's preventing lymph or blood flow or water to go to the rest of the system. So when you're hitting the spots with the MFR, you're essentially, and with the MFR, you're temporarily, and you can't go that deep, but it does help to declog and kind of create more, I guess, allow more things to get access by, I guess, blood. So you're getting essentially like a little bit of hydration.
Yeah. It's a type of very accessible fascial therapy, essentially. Like just like right in the beginning, it's all fascial therapy, but this is just very accessible to anyone to be able to just either lie on the floor or on a couple of cushions or something like that.
And there's no risk like with stretching or like mobility work, because you could probably think like, okay, I can just hang from a bar or stretch or stretch passively.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of depending on the range of motion and depending on how you're doing it, there's a big risk on like overstretching ligaments, overstretching tendons. With this, you're actually you're like giving mechanical input into the area that like you're way more specific. So it's a lot safer.
And it's important to remember that everything you do is an input. So if I just do some sort of kind of flaccid side bending or whatever the case may be, it's like, yeah, sure, I may not experience the negative externalities of that right away, but it can be benign, but it can also just work against. It's like, okay, well, why am I doing that? That's why we even go into like body language and stuff like that, right? Like anxious body language, like yet you're giving your brain a signal that, you know, that you should be anxious or that you should, like, you get to a point where I remember my girlfriend and I were in the grocery store and we saw a guy and he would be standing there and then he'd go, right, very like anxious body language. So if you keep telling yourself that you need that, it's almost like scratching an itch over and over again. You know what I'm saying? And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. So that's also the thing too. When you're giving yourself that neuromuscular input, then you're telling your body that you need that over and over again, and the negative externalities build up over time.
You're reinforcing the pattern.
Yeah.